Hello and welcome to another video in the Winning Agenda's Patreon subscribers video series. These videos are brought to you by our Patreon subscribers. So thanks to all of you who have subscribed. Today we've got Brian Holland on the left of your screen, host Brian Holland, playing his Spark Agency aggro list. And on the right of the screen, we've got Tim Quozo, a panel member of the Winning Agenda, playing his Maximum Punk Rock deck. I've got with me Judge Tom Daniel.
Hey guys.
How have you been, Tom? And what are you looking forward to seeing in this game?
Look, I've been very well, and I'm actually keen to see Brian pilot, I guess, what has been his pet deck over the past month or so, which is Spark Agency, going for a mulligan there.
Tim also going for a mulligan.
I think Spark Agency jumped out as being one of these kind of potentially key cards over the last expansion. And how do you feel about the identity?
Yeah, I think it's got a lot of potential in a particular direction. And I think that the design space is reasonably unexplored in terms of Corp decks trying to deny the runner resources. It's certainly been a sub-theme in NBM, but it's never really amounted to much with things like Invasion of Privacy.
Closed accounts, these types.
And closed accounts, yeah, those sorts of cards. The Spark Agency feeds into that, and I think we will see at some point, even if not right now, a critical mass of cards that make that push that strategy over the top. The advertisement angle that Brian's gone with here, which is what Spark Agency pushes you into, does work reasonably well. And sometimes we see plays like proactive rezzing of assets on the runner's first turn to stop them from being able to short gamble is one thing that Brian really likes to do.
Yep.
And that's what he's gone for here. So Tim will go down to 4.
Oh, you see the big bad wolf reaching over and throwing his opponent's credit.
Yeah, I mean, like, that's poor sportsmanship. But it's the sort of thing that we've come to expect from the Big Bad Wolf.
Now, we've talked a bit about Spark Agency, Max. What can we expect out of Max other than a lot of keyhole?
So what have we got there on top? We've got product placement. So that's going to gain the Big Bad Wolf some credits. And Tim has opted to trash it. I think that's a good call because although it doesn't look like much, if the Big Bad Wolf puts that in the server with his Sansan City grid, it's going to make running and trashing that really painful for Tim. Yeah.
So, going back to what I was talking about before, what can we expect out of Max?
We can expect to see a lot of cards hitting the heap and some hitting the grip.
That is what the identity does.
Yeah.
But what are any Max strategies particularly late game, or are we all generally aggro strategies?
Yeah, I mean we're generally looking at a sort of aggro strategy, but Levy AR Lab access does allow the deck to have quite a bit of reach. And what's really good about Max is the consistency. So Tim hasn't had a particularly consistent start here in that he's sort of got a lot of deja vus and things in hand which aren't very proactive cards.
What's the card sitting in the middle of the screen?
So a Hacktivist Meeting, which is going to punish the Big Bad Wolf, make him discard a card at random from his hand whenever he reses a non-ice card.
Right.
So it's quite a big hoser for horizontal decks, and I think it's a card that's going to gain a lot of power. It's very good against food coats, which we saw in our last video that Tim was piloting. So he's got the answer for that in his Max deck, obviously, because he's realizing the power of it as he's playing it through.
And this is a current?
It's a current, yeah. So he's going to lose that if Brian manages to score out an agenda. But one thing that is a good interaction for Tim is that when Brian reses a Sansan City grid to try and score,
he could potentially be discarding that.
He could potentially be discarding. Probably not his agenda, because he can have the agenda in play before he reses the Sansan, but potentially another agenda that he has in his hand. Just introduces another element of risk to everything that the Big Bad Wolf is doing.
So if you're Tim right now, you're sitting on a liberated account. He's probably going to take some money, but what do you think his game plan is from here? Where's he going to try and attack?
The difficult thing for Tim being on a reasonably low number of credits is that whatever he runs in terms of face down ice could drain him of more. So he's getting rid of that Naked Launch campaign. I don't know whether I would have done that. I'm not sure the Big Bad Wolf was going to be able to res that with the Hacktivist Meeting on the board. And Tim is reasonably low on credits.
Looks like he's going for a slightly more mid-game economy.
Yeah,
he's playing that
the daily cast.
Yeah.
So he took another 4 from the Liberated, and then he's played out the daily cast.
Yeah.
So Brian's now gone 3 ice deep on this server. A lot of the ice is very porous. So if Tim can find an AI breaker other than Eater, he's going to be able to get in there probably and see that card.
And you mentioned that Hacktivist punishes decks that do go horizontal.
Yeah, so Brian's instead opted to try and build a scoring remote early. And that's looking like it's definitely the right call for Brian, and it's looking like it might be reasonably successful here because Tim's had quite a slow start. We've seen a couple of his breakers hit the bin, and he seems to have drawn quite a bit of economy on top of those deja vus.
I mean, Eli, is that the ideal ice to have in front of R&D in this matchup, or?
Oh, it's good. I mean, Eli's always a great R&D ice because it's taxing, and for the Anarch breakers, for Ida or Faust, it's still reasonably taxing.
And, of course, considering that most of these Spark Agency lists are going to have fairly permissible ice, as you were saying before, having one that's perhaps a bit less permissible on a key central is pretty important.
Yeah, and that's always been the value of Eli in these aggressive corporation decks, is that it only costs 3 to res, but it taxes Corroder or things with Corroder stats that are AI 4 credits.
And it's only 1 influence as well.
Yeah.
We'll be sad to see it go for rotation.
Certainly will. So Brian scored the AstroScript pilot program out from behind his 3 ice there. He's showing us the winning agenda counter.
If you want to support us, you can definitely hit us up to get some agenda counters.
Yeah, we're giving those out through our events over the next little while, but if you're really interested in getting hold of some to run an event in your home city, please let us know.
They do look very beautiful. Shout outs to Team Covenant.
Yeah, shout out to Team Covenant. Thanks for putting those together for us, guys. Really appreciate it. So Tim's got 3 sort of drip economy pieces, I guess you would really call liberated accounts drip economy. He's seeing a fast track on HQ, but he's got 3 resource economy pieces sitting in play, which are giving him credit slowly, but probably not at the pace that he would really like to combat this aggressive spark play.
And this early AstroScript as well. If there's certainly one, if the first agenda your opponent could score, if you got to choose it, it would almost certainly not be AstroScript.
No, that is true. So Brian's probably installed an asset behind that new remote, we would assume, now that the Hacktivist meeting's gone because of the AstroScript. Tim ditching a Plascrete, same old thing. So with the Deja Vus, now he does have access to the Corroder that he's pitched earlier, and I'm not sure if he pitched any other breakers.
He's also got a
he's got a
chip
Yogg in hand, I think. Oh, sorry, he's also got a Colleen chip, so that'll be more efficient and quicker than Deja Vuing for any of those breakers. I haven't seen him mill many viruses, I don't think, at this point.
The Big Bad Wolf taking a look at the yard, something that is obviously pretty important.
Yeah.
You know, obviously, if you're playing the deck, the max deck, you should always be checking that. But if your opponent has a graveyard-based strategy, as we would say, you want to be aware of what they have access to. As you were going through there, now you know exactly what kind of options they have if they do Deja Vu or Clone Chip or whatnot. And we can see the Yogg here is hitting play, and we're going to go after that remote there.
So I think Tim's checked the remote, Brian's rezzed the Quandary, Tim's played the Yogg to get through, and now he's hitting an Adonis.
Yeah.
Which Brian's opting not to res, to just drain the credit rather.
Yeah.
Which I think is fair. Paying 4 of your own credits when you're on 5 just to drain 1 is not a particularly good trade.
But especially for Tim there, he wants to deny that economy, but also, I mean, he's paying 3 to trash it, but he'd be losing 1 if he left it there anyway, when
Correct.
Brian rested at the end of the turn.
Correct.
Jackson.
So hitting hedge fund there was pretty perfect for Brian when you're sitting on 5.
Yep.
You really want to see those hedge funds. So he's got a fast track. I'm not sure if he's playing Biotic in this deck. But if he is, he's got access to Astro, Biotic, fast track to chain out the next Astro, now that he's got enough money.
A card that, fast track, that is, a card that Brian is very, very keen on. He is quoted as saying that he'll never play less than 3 in any aggressive deck.
Yeah, I really like fast track. There can be situations, obviously, where your opponent can lock you out of economy and fast track's not particularly good, or where you're sitting behind a clot. But other than that, it lets you get out of these sort of medium dig situations and still win.
And the games where fast track is good, it looks amazing.
Yes, it does.
So we've got a what's that?
Launch campaign.
Yep.
On top, so 1 to res, 2 to trash. Tim's opted to trash.
Yep. Once again, just doing quite a good job at actually denying Brian the economy.
Yeah.
We saw him, he got that hedge fund before.
I'd like to see Brian put some advertisements on R&D, I think, to try and protect that, but also tax Tim a little bit more. Okay, so we had an Astro in that big remote again, and he's got...
Was that you played that from hand?
Oh, did he play that from hand? So we don't have 2 counters. We've just used the Astro counter.
So it'll be interesting to see what Brian's going to do next turn in terms of both his economy and also this Parasite. Slowly eating away at this... speaking of economy...
So Account Siphon, that's big game. I mean, if this is just a product placement or something on HQ...
Pop-up window, something like that.
Yeah, it's not going to be particular... I mean, product placement would be better for Brian, but...
So he's going to...
So he's letting him in. I wonder what that was. If it was a product placement or a pop-up, I would have liked to have seen a res there just to give Brian the extra economy for next turn. But maybe he's happy to be on 2 and just grow out that Beal that he's got in hand.
He's going... looks like he's clicked... No, he's paid corroded through that E-line. He's building some medium counters.
And I'd be really worried here if I was Brian. Like, if you start seeing too many medium counters, it can start getting out of hand really.
It's really
quickly.
how these Anarch decks kind of put the game out. You can get it
Close
done
the game
really
out.
quickly.
Yeah.
So
medium scale's really, really hard.
Yeah. Even though Brian is very much ahead in terms of agenda points and that he has that agenda counter as well, this could definitely be a way for him to lose the game quicker than he could possibly win it.
So Architect is a good draw for Brian there.
Do you think he's going to trash the Eli?
Yeah, well, it's going to die at the beginning of Tim's next turn anyway. Yep. I mean, the other option for him is to purge virus counters at this point, which I think is actually probably the correct play. He's not under any pressure. Yep, so he's doing
the wave of the hand, and things magically go away. A wizard.
Yeah.
Powerful wizard.
He just waved his magic scrubber wand and scrubbed away the viruses.
I don't want to hear you talk shit about Scrubble ever again.
He was probably using Vet95. I think that's his favourite antivirus software. The Big Bad Wolf. So Tim's gone in on liberated accounts used 3 times, and now the Big Bad Wolf stabilised behind that Eli and scored out the agenda. I think he played that really well. Yep. Keeping up that Eli was really important there. If he'd let it die, it was 4 runs from medium going up to 7 counters, which I think is reasonably likely to be the game, considering that Brian has so many trashables in his deck that Tim could be trashing along the way.
Yeah. Now he's building back those medium counters once again.
Yeah.
Now, do you know if Brian or the Spark Agency list in general are running the typical NBN agenda suite of 2-pointers and breaking news?
Yes, I think so. And I think Brian actually has some NAP contracts in hand. So that's his last 2-pointer.
That's his last 2-pointer?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, his third 2-pointer rather. But after Astro and Beal.
So going...
So we're seeing the third...
there's the NAPD, yep.
Or is that the 4th run? Yeah.
Yeah. And getting to see kind of an extra card because he chose to trash the Jackson on the previous run.
Yeah.
So interesting situation. We're kind of back to where we were, except now with Brian on match point.
Yeah.
What do you think the move is here from Brian?
Well, he's very low and he's used his Astro counter, so he's going to require either a Sansan or to just score in that remote. I think at this point he's got a reasonable chance of scoring an NAPD in that remote, considering Tim's going to be focusing on R&D. However, Brian is sitting very low on credits, and he's going to... The other option for him is to fast track for a breaking news at some point. Okay, so we're seeing a legwork from Tim, and he's going to be sitting on 4. So I think if what Brian installed last turn in that remote is the NAPD, that was a good call, I think, from him. And it looks like it may well have been.
So whiffed there on the legwork.
Yeah. So Tim played that well, and
he would have had the 4 to seal it as well.
So he kept the 4 for the NAPD, which is smart.
And it looks like
and now he is checking that NAPD now, and Brian unable to res anything.
Even a pop-up window there would have.
Any ice at all.
Any ice.
So that's unfortunate for the Big Bad Wolf. This is interesting. I'd be
concerned.
Very concerned if I was Brian. that Tim's going to now be able to ride that medium to victory, because only needing to score any 2 agendas from here, unless it's 2 breaking news, means that it's a must. He must deal with that. Brian must deal with that.
Consider that Brian does have the fast track in hand, so if given an opportunity, he could go fast track for the breaking news.
Yes, and try he'd need a biotic.
Try and score it in the remote or do something like that. Obviously, it does shuffle his deck, which is going to be bad, particularly in this situation.
Unless, I'm not sure if there are any known cards on top of R&D still at this point. I haven't tracked that closer.
I think there might be one, potentially 1 or 2, because he did go 4 deep.
So Brian's drawn another ice here. I'm very curious about what those 3 ice are on that remote. I would have thought there would be something there that Brian could res.
Yeah. This is the Architect.
Replacing the Eli. And he's got the Architect. Okay, that's okay, but I probably would have liked to have seen another Purge there. Tim was on 0 credits, and it would take him a lot of resources to be able to build up to 4 counters again, let alone go beyond that.
And if, as I was saying, I think if there was a known card or 1 or 2 known cards, he's not going to be able to get in that many times. We've already seen him burn through a bunch of liberated accounts as well.
Yeah.
And as these max decks do, every turn that you the game goes on.
Is he on 5 credits? I thought he went down to 0 to steal the NAPD. I'm not sure.
I do believe he did, but I think he's clicked for credits.
He's just clicked for credits, right, sure.
So, precarious position, I think, for both players.
Yeah. The Tim's obviously vulnerable to the top deck breaking news at this point.
Ryan going for the defensive play of...
double icing R&D. Yep. I think that's good.
Yep.
Hopefully it wasn't a quandary.
You wouldn't try and force the issue and fast track for the final point?
I mean, it depends what his configuration is. I mean, if he's playing Shipment from Sansan and breaking news... and Biotic Labor, then you could... There's a lot more plays open to you, but I can't see either of those cards in his hand alongside that fast track, nor can I see a Sansan City Rid. So his options for actually scoring it are quite few.
Okay, so Tim's gone for the Deja Vu on the account siphon. I mean, he didn't res the ice the first time. Is he going to res it the second time? He does. It's a wraparound.
Okay. He's going down to 3 credits now. Okay. I mean, I think this is really, really bad news for Brian.
Unfortunately, unless one of the ice on R&D is a pop-up, I don't think he's going to be doing too much. No res, and straight off the top.
So that would be the value of having purged earlier, is that you already have a res dice, which means you're not so vulnerable to siphon because you don't need credits.
Yeah.
Looks like we're not seeing the win here. No, we're not. Okay.
But he's still got it. He may still have a click left.
Still have a click, yeah.
Oh, jeez.
Bit more good sportsmanship from the Boo Battle Warfare. Yeah. Because he same old thinged the siphon.
The siphon, yeah.
And then he's run R&D once, so he must have done something else as well. Not sure.
Deja Vu the siphon.
Did he?
Yeah.
Okay. Still only 2 clicks there.
Click, gaining 3. Unfortunately, still not enough to res the Architect.
Yeah, I would have really liked to have seen a Purge there as well.
Interesting, Tim just milled two same old things, but he's got a Deja Vu and presumably going for the account siphon once again. Oh, jeez.
The big thumb comes across. Yeah, I'm not really sure that clicking for credits against the siphon train at this point is doing a lot when there's 5 counters on the medium.
Yeah.
But Brian is in a tough spot. I mean, it feels horrible to purge at that point, but I think that's really your only option.
So as we saw there, there was a big turning point where you feel like he should have purged as opposed to going for the install of the Architect. Would have been interesting to see how the game would have played out if he'd gone that route. Unfortunately, we don't get the benefit of going back.
Yes, of replaying time with different choices. Just like it would have been good for me not to goof in both of the games that I played in this series. But well played to both players there. They both had ample opportunity to win the game if the draws turned out in their favour. Unfortunately, Brian couldn't find the last agenda that he needed or the Biotic Labor.
I think it was a good example of how this kind of matchup, this kind of aggro versus Max is probably still in the aggro spectrum.
Yeah, I think Tim managed Brian's resources really well in terms of trashing the assets, and Brian, it seemed, in terms of his ice, we didn't see a lot of ice resed, which indicated to me either that they were quandaries or wraparounds that were blanked by the two icebreakers that Tim had in play, or they were too expensive, and I think it must be the former, because I don't think there is too many expensive ice on the deck, and it would have been good from Brian's perspective to see more advertisement ice.
Absolutely, yeah, not making a lot of good use out of that
ID ability in that game. No,
awesome. Well, that was the last of our meats-based games, at least for now.
I think we have me and the Big Bad Wolf at some point, but we'll see.
We'll see what happens. Thanks to everyone for supporting us on Patreon. We love you guys. If you want to support us, you can, as we say, support us on Patreon. You can go to Ink's Playmat. You can pick up a sweet Winning Agenda playmat, or you can just tune in every week to the Winning Agenda podcast. On behalf of Jesse Marshall and myself, we'll see you for the next one. Maybe.
We'll see. Thanks, guys.
See you guys.